Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another one of my live streams. I'm, of course, joined by the inimitable, incomparable Vicky Poole from Tender Response. Thank you for that. And today she wants to talk about something which I normally associate with going out and buying flour, eggs, doing the cleaning, and basically making the place tidy for when my wife comes home from work. Housekeeping. What has that got to do with the price of cheese, Vicky Poole?
Well, the price of cheese is really important, Gareth. So when you're looking at like housekeeping and tenders, you're going to get multiple questions in a tender. You're going to like 5 or 6 questions, maybe 20, 30, 40, who knows? So when different people are responding to those sections, it needs to read consistent.
Oh,
and it's very difficult to read consistent if it's MP hats or many purple hats, MP hats limited, or Gareth wax. It's all right, guys, right, time out. So we are going to be addressing the client as the counsel, the client, and that needs to be rippled throughout the document. All right. We as an entity are going to be many purple hats, which can be abbreviated to MPH.
right.
And if you do it generally for word count reasons, and you're always writing the third person. It's all these little things that make your response look succinct. But of course, that's your response. There's also housekeeping when it comes to acknowledging responses from the client, which can be hugely important, because those and checking those and keeping a record of those will make your response so much easier.
So what you're talking about is maintaining continuity, maintaining consistency, yes?
Absolutely. So anyone who knows me knows that I'm probably the most unorganized person on the planet. However, I do live and die by an Excel spreadsheet when it comes to tenders, and they're just the best thing ever. So every time you get an update from a client or you see a response to a clarification question, the question goes down, the response goes down. Because when you kind of, the CQ deadline will pass, and you'll be looking for some of the nuances in language, and you'll go, oh, actually, they said that the tender needs, our turnover needs to be twice the value of the tender.
Right.
So if the tender is 100 grand, your turnover needs to be 200 grand. And it's like, oh, do we need to, massage these numbers a little bit, fractions? If you're doing it more than by 1% or 2%, it's not your right tender. But, sometimes adjusting the price down by 50p an hour can make the world of difference. And it's just little things, because when the person comes to evaluate your tender, it's going to be tick box exercise. Is their turnover twice the size of the value of the contract? Oh, no, they're £3.48 out. Oh, darn. Tender goes in the bin. Right. Little things like that. Housekeeping, record it. Record everything, including variations in documents. I'm working on a tender at the moment. The tenders got released on the 18th of January and it's been submitted on the 1st of March.
Right.
And I'm now on my version 3 of the questions. They're changing their questions.
Okay, you want everything consistent. So that means, should you prepare it all in advance before you even start looking at the tender itself? You should be defining exactly how it's going to look and feel all the way through. But of course, there's all those restrictions that each tender have as far as look and feel.
Yes, to both of those. So there's a wonderful friend of mine called Siraj Baines who talks about, and she's a speaker, she talks about having a strategy for sales. And whether you're working in the commercial environment or you're working in public sector, you need to have a strategy. You need to have like an ethos and a plan. So at the moment I've got 6 clients that I'm doing the tender support with, which is where we help everybody through the stage of the process. And we look specifically at what your methodology is and what your approach is. So one of them is a family-based construction firm that has a really strong social value ethics. So in all of the responses, it's really it's really bringing in the social value in like the skills and the development. We talk about that in every section because that's the primary ethos of the business. And yes, in doing that, we respond to the questions. So there has to be a plan. Otherwise, you're just responding to everything completely flat. Now, you can respond to tenders flat and to say, well, this is an off-the-shelf product. This is how it works. This is how you use it. That doesn't tell the client anything about you as a business and what it's like to work with you.
So are businesses really looking to get that? Are really businesses looking to find out what the character of the business is? Is that important to come through a tender?
It's becoming more and more important. Absolutely. So come April, so at the moment, if you have a carbon reduction plan, it's a nice to have.
Right.
Come April, it's mandatory.
Ah.
At the moment, having a social value is maybe 5% of your marks. Come April, we're expecting that to double to 10. And then by the later part to this year in October, we're expecting social value and the carbon, the environmental policies to be much greater, because meat is changing to MAT. So most economically advantageous tender is going to most advantageous tender. So the councils then can really ask different questions about what it's like to work with you. And they do this in several ways. So they'll say, what's the value that you provide, or what's your value add? They're not asking about we take away all of our rubbish from site and dispose of it sensibly. They're not talking about that. What they're actually wanting is, as part of this contract, we're going to bring in 7 apprentices that are from disadvantaged backgrounds, and we're going to give them the skills throughout the life of the contract. So by coming to us, and whilst we might not be the cheapest, by coming to us, what we're actually going to do is give these 7 people experience that they can then use to springboard into other learning and developments. That's the value that you bring.
Right.
But then that will be different in different companies. So if I was to put my corporate hat on, it would be we bring in 7 university students, and then we cycle them around the business, giving them lots of different aspects. And this contract would house 2 placements for students, which we'd incorporate on a cycle. Because the contract's 3 years, it would be a placement on that 3 year in that cycle. So then it's slightly different language. That's a value. It's the value that you bring.
Wow. All right.
But again, you need to know this. You need to have your business approach before you start responding to a tender. Now, if you don't have this and you don't have it in your noggin right now, that's absolutely fine, because that's one of the values of working with a tender consultant such as myself. So there are a few of us around here, and it's even if you hear what I'm saying and you think it's good, but you don't resonate with my energy, that's absolutely fine. I know plenty of people out there that I can connect you with who have different energies to me. It's really important, because if we have a sales background like I do, we'll help you shape your message and your USP. And that then goes into your tender responses. You can find a bid writing consultant anywhere, and they will literally take information from your business and write a really flat response. That response might pick up 1/2 to 3/4 of the marks. If you're looking to really stand out and pick up as many marks as possible, you need a tender consultant who has a bit of bid writing, bit of sales, knows how to pick up the marks, and they then help you with that positioning.
It is
so when we're talking about housekeeping, there's lots of different strands. It's like spinning plates. You got to keep them all up there, because they all need to run in parallel.
Positioning is everything, though, in this, is it not? Because in a world where a bunch of other people are also going to be issuing bids, who have potentially just used bid writers or used somebody who's had a sales background, but perhaps hasn't had the experiences you've had, the differences can be minimal. But if you can stand out from the crowd for perhaps, in your client's case, hitting the sustainability brief very hard in every portion of the response, ensuring that it is perceived that sustainability and the green agenda are important to you, then you'll stand out from others who don't perhaps make as much of a song and dance about it.
Yeah, and funnily enough, all of the smaller companies, the SME variant, they're able to be more flexible on meeting the social and environmental objectives of councils. Because when you start looking at the bigger organizations, it's well, we have to do this.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's almost regulated by them, whereas a lot of the smaller companies have that ability to be more agile and
Well,
look and be able to
agility,
adopt and take up
I
with
think
ideas more quickly.
I think agility is the best card you can play in this, isn't it? Yes, I can hit everything you need me to hit, but by the way, we can absorb variances as per normal. It's not a big thing for us. And I think if you make that clear, that makes you stand out as well, does it not?
It does. I think the ability to be flexible here, particularly on a social value basis, is a slightly different field. So when you're looking at social value, it's not just employing people, it's about what resources that you can, and I'm going to use the word gift. It's not quite a gift, but it's what's within your power to offer away for free. So you may have a HR person who could run a CV writing workshop for the unemployed. You know, that's social value.
Right.
And, you know, that might only be, say, 4 hours, but that could be completely different to what someone else is doing. Now, you can find out more about the social value from any council, ministry, central government body that you're looking for, if you know where to look. So they are the strategy document that all councils have to have. They have the important things. And if they're number 5, so if they've got 5 things that's really important to them, and then number 5 is your number 1, you really need to be looking at what their number 1 is. Because that's the thing that's going to trump. So if your standard response to social value lists out 1, 2, and 3, it may be the case that when you're producing the response, you need to adjust that order a little bit so that the client's number 1 thing is the number 1 in their response.
I think the client's number 1 thing should be the one thing that you champion above all other things. You've got to be looking as if you've heard and seen the client and are therefore focusing on what's important to them before what you perceive as most important to you. What let me do at this point is I'm going to put across the bottom of the screen a rolling ticker with one of Vicky's excellent resources pages. Now, what's on here?
Oh, there's oodles on there, everybody. So there is 10 tips to tendering, which is probably going to be the best one for everybody watching today that resonates with our topics. It's about the things to do. And funnily enough, most of those things in there are about tender housekeeping. Looking at the font, the size of the text, how to respond, you know, if there are any graphics and if the word count's included in the graphics that you need to include within the overall word count, things like that. So that's in there, and it's free to download. All I need is your email address. Don't worry, we don't sell your services and sell your emails on the third-party services. It's literally just so I can track to say who's downloaded the documents, because we do have a few people that have downloaded everything, and then some that have just downloaded the one.
I was going to ask you a silly question. You know, when people upload graphics, is it important, especially if the graphics are going to form part of a tender, is it important that those graphics are either owned by them or copyright free?
I would be very surprised if anybody who was producing a tender that used images that were copyrighted to somebody else.
Well, so sometimes you get stock images, and if you have to check the small print to make sure whether or not you're allowed to use that as freely as if they were your own or copyright free.
Most businesses that I work with and most businesses that I've seen that are responding to tenders have their own images.
Perfect. And I think that's what I should do.
Yes.
Absolutely. Also, I'm going to show you very quickly the tender response hotline. Here it is. Now, this is a WhatsApp number, so please feel free to send messages. By the way, to all of you that may not realize it, this is a live stream. So if you are sending messages now, you aren't going to get a response until after the live stream is complete. What I would say is, in the first instance, write to Vicky explaining what it is you have in mind. And then she can come back to you and either book some time with you whereby you can discuss in more detail or come back with a series of suggestions. Remember that resources document that we've got streaming around the bottom there is a good place to make sure that you've got your head screwed on straight about what you can or can't expect from the tender process. All right, before I wind this up, Vicky, have you got any last comments or thoughts to throw at the people listening before we move on?
Just very, very quickly, there are always response templates that you need to adhere to. Unless specifically instructed, you have to respond in the response template. And sometimes the response template isn't configured to the appropriate font and size of the text. So always make sure, always make sure to look for the response document and use the appropriate font size and format. So it's like Arial size 11 normally. Otherwise, you're non-compliant and your bid goes in the bin.
Go straight in the bin. It's so crazy. Don't be caught out by such silliness. Thank you once again, Vicky, for educating me and general public, because there's lots to be said about it. But if you want to be interested in what can be a lucrative, long-standing contract that will bring in money onto the table for anything up to, say, 1 to 5 years, depending on the tender you're responding to, then perhaps you should have a conversation with Vicky Poole. You can find her very easily on the onto the interwebs, specifically on LinkedIn. Or if you're too scared to approach her, because let's say she is a formidable woman, you can always approach me and I'll pass you along to her and she will help you out. But in the meantime, thank you once again, Vicky Poole, for educating me and anyone listening. And I wish everyone here a successful week and, of course, good mental health. Goodbye until next time.